Hey, what's up? This is Dillio representing DillioT2K.com. Make sure you check out the website. In this video right here, we're going to talk about VST plugins, and we're going to give you some tips and some information about some questions that may have been asked about installing VST plugins and where you can install them. So let's start from the beginning. Now, personally, when I install VST plugin, I typically will try to install it on a drive that's connected directly to the PC or Mac that I'm working with. And the reason I'm doing that is for read and write speeds. When you're dealing with read and write speeds, that determines how fast the computer can access the data of that VST plugin, the sample information and all that stuff and all the presets, how fast it can get it when it's trying to pull from this plugin and that plugin when you have a project that's already done. Now, I could elect or opt to select the plugin and tell it to install onto an external drive. So let's figure out what happens when I do it. Yes, it's kind of more of a separate drive. You can save space and memory on your main system, but what happens when you do that is that you create a bottleneck, in my opinion. What I'm saying by that is this: if you have a USB cable and it's only going to give you a 2.0 connection or a 3.0 connection, there's a limited bandwidth, and the drive itself may not be able to read and write the speed of which the connection it provides. But when you deal with a SATA connection, which is what most computer hard drives are working with now, you got like a 6 gigabytes of bandwidth right there. Now, I'm not saying that your hard drive is going to write at that speed, but what you're going to have is a much wider gateway for the data to go to and from your drives. So in this case, sample information, like say if you're using Omnisphere or Massive or any multiple set of plugins for one session, you want your computer to get that data as fast as possible, which is why, to me, it's always best to use a direct SATA connection inside the computer. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have space on your computer, then go ahead and elect to use an external drive. When you use an external drive, you buy yourself some time for some space, but again, that connection and that read-write speeds are going to be greatly reduced unless you have a USB 3 connection or a Thunderbolt connection or maybe even an eSATA connection right there. But my own personal choice will always be the decision to run it off of the direct drives inside the computer. That's the most straight line way you can get data to and from your sessions that you work with in music. So if you want to try to install your VST plugins on an external drive instead of the system drive that you're working with, the installation program or application should provide you with that option. Some programs are pickier than others and won't provide that option. Like for instance, my Dillie based VST plugin, you can just copy that wherever you want it to and it'll work. So most software, depending on, and I can't say most, I'll say some software will allow you to choose where to install it and others won't. Like I know when it comes to, when I used to work with Pro Tools and that whole thing with that, Pro Tools was very specific on where you had to install your plugins. You couldn't tell Pro Tools where to find it. But in a situation with FL Studio or Studio One 3, you can tell it where you wanted to find your VST plugins and it'll say, okay, if they're over there, we'll grab it. So in that scenario, if you want to store your VST plugins, RTAS, or whatever audio units, not RTAS, but audio units, plugins, whatever plugins you have, if you can tell the software where you want it to go, you can then put your VST plugins on there. But you have to be careful about your data paths or your file paths, because if you get those mixed up moving from one system or another, or if the session is saved in a certain way that says, okay, I'm looking for things here and there, and you change all that, then you got to go ahead and backtrack all of that stuff. So it's always good to be consistent in where you put your VST plugins so that later on down the line you can recover them or recover the information you need from them so you can get to your sessions as fast as possible so you can get to work. The type of drives I think that are best to use for anything dealing with musical workstations is RAID drives, because you have at least a set of redundancy. Now, I've done a video talking about RAIDs on my channel, and I'll try to put it on the blog post with this as well. But external drives that provide you with a very fast data connection and then the firepower to provide you with the bandwidth to saturate that line. So for instance, if I get a Toshiba, and I'm not trying to call them out, let's say I get one little simple drive right there and I hook it up USB 2.0, there's going to be a case where maybe that drive will fail, or maybe that drive can't read and write at the speed needed to. But when you start using the power of RAIDs, you can then increase your read and write speeds a whole lot more than just trusting it on one drive. And if you're running as RAID 1, then you have a redundancy lies in there so that if one drive fails, another one can still proceed and move forward, and you can still access your data and back it up to another source. So to me, external RAID drives are probably the option I would personally choose for. And it may cost a little bit more, but to me it's worth it. If you can do that and have to get external drive, do that. But also know to run the risk of that drive may not work always. So always pay attention to that. Most of the time when you try to take your VST plugins off of a PC drive or system drive and then transfer them over to a VST plugin, you're going to run a problem. You're going to really piss off the DLL file or whatever file it is, because I think a lot of times there's a configuration in place, and then you also have to make sure that the program you're working with can say, okay, yeah, I see that you put it over there, change the direction of directory or the direction of the VST plugin to another location and then put that in there. I think that's totally a fine thing to do, but you're going to run into problems. You know, at the end of the day, I think you should plan out what you want. If you want all your VST plugins on external sources, then do it that way, and make sure the plugins and make sure the program that you're working with is flexible to do that. And that way you alleviate problems. But once you got it in there and you've used it and run it and you take it off and you put it somewhere else, you're going to cause more headaches than you need to. If you really have to use your VST plugins on external drives, just know that you're going to run into slower data read and write speeds. And then also you have to make sure that the program you're working with is flexible to do so. Two programs that I know that are flexible enough to do so are Studio One 3 and FL Studio. Those actually have settings or preferences where you can select where do you want the VST plugins to be at, and it'll go to it and find that. So that typically will work, but it's based on the program at that point, and also based on the VST plugin. Will it stay happy? Will the manufacturer of the VST plugin let you install it on an external drive? These are all things that you have to meet head on, so I can't really call out every scenario that comes in that place. And also at the end of the day, you have to make sure those drives are hooked up to your DAW. You can't run your plugins with an external drive on your DAW, open up the session, run it that one time, then the day after you take off that external drive, run off somewhere with it, try to open your session. It's going to say, hey, where are these files at? I can't locate them. And at that point in time, you have to go ahead and try to locate the file somewhere else or hook up that drive back up to do it. The only thing that you can do to alleviate the need for external hard drives or something like that is if you take what you've done with the VST plugin and bounce it to a waveform. That way that the situation is preserved, always with that session. So if you save it and open it up 10 years later, everything's there. You don't have to go digging up old plugins that were around 10 years ago. Because there are some things that I wish I had that I made 10 years ago and I can't find the plugins anymore because I've lost all the files and I can't log in and download it again, or the manufacturer just simply doesn't offer them anymore. So I hope that helps. Make sure you check out the products in the description below. I got a lot of links down there, and make sure you check it out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, stay tuned for more. Thank you for checking it out, and I look forward to hearing from you next time right here at Dillio T2K, DillioT2K.com. I'm Dillio, signing out. Peace. This video is sponsored by Khemikals, a preset library from Massive including pads, leads, bass sounds, and more. Be sure to visit DillioT2K.com to hear it live and pick up your copy today.